All right, before we get into the position by position breakdown, I just want to hear your takes on, like, what do you watch at the Shrine Senior Bowl? What's the value of these games to you?
For me, it's one, the competition. I'm there for everybody says like the game is a very cool like experience if you ever get to go like for the first time. I say go to the game because it feels like it's a very good experience to have, but you make the most money during practices. And I think for me, it comes down to that competition aspect. These guys be putting on pads, hitting people in different helmets, different color helmets than they used to before in practice. And I just look for the way that guys move with pads on. That's the biggest thing. That's the biggest difference between like the combine drills and doing Shrine and Senior. I want to see how these guys move with the pads on. Is the game speed you see on tape the same as the game speed in person when they have these pads on? So it's about the movement skills. It's about picking up what new coaching is telling you within a week. But mainly it's just the competition. Who's there to compete and who's there to go win?
I agree with that. All you said. I think I'll just add like who it's valuable for. To me, most valuable for smaller level competition guys, which are getting fewer and further between. The guys who are switching positions or kind of like tweener position guys, or guys who just like haven't played a ton of football. We'll get to that with some of these later. Whether you were splitting time with someone, whether you were injured for whatever reason. I think for all those, and there are also certain positions where it just means more. I think it's the one-on-one positions is where it means more, in my opinion. Like running back going down there, I've never changed my opinion on a running back after a Senior Bowl or Shrine Bowl. Just like it's not what you can diagnose there is so minimal for those positions. But wide receivers, corners, defensive line, offensive line, quarterback to a degree, I think it all is very valuable for those positions. So let's get into quarterback. Where my top three at the Shrine, Cade Klubnik, Clemson quarterback. Obviously didn't have the season he wanted, but I think he rebounded well down the stretch. Jalen Daniels, the Kansas quarterback, and Joey Fagnano, the Connecticut quarterback. And then Senior Bowl, Taylor Green from Arkansas, Sawyer Robertson from Baylor, and Diego Pavia from Vanderbilt. These are kind of, usually, historically, more talent, pretty much the top talent all goes to the Senior Bowl. This year, though, this quarterback class at least is kind of close between the two. I'm not sure that the Senior Bowl for sure has the more talent and will have the higher drafted players at least the quarterback position.
And it's sort of become it's pretty cool that Shrine is able to, and they're so evenly matched because especially for this year's QB class, it feels like QB3 or even QB3, even QB2 sort of feels like it's up for grabs right now. Yeah. Whoever gets drafted after Ty Simpson feels like it could be anyone's guess. It could be whoever has the best postseason run. And so this is where it starts for a lot of those guys. I'm really curious to see which guy steps up immediately as the leader of the bunch in both games.
I think I'm looking forward to most Fagnano, the UConn quarterback, because he had 28 touchdowns, 1 interception this season. He played good ball. I think he's 6'4", 220, has real NFL arm strength. Like that, there are things to work with there. And like that's, again, who's the guy this is valuable for? The guy who really hasn't played a ton of top competition that you saw on tape at UConn. So him, I think it's going to be very valuable for. And then probably Pavia. Pavia's at the Senior Bowl was obviously awesome this year. Heisman finalist, brought Vanderbilt to the precipice of the playoff. But, obviously the negatives are obvious. He's 5'10". He's not, the size of a franchise quarterback. But sometimes we've seen Stetson Bennett, who I didn't think was going to be an NFL quarterback, go in the 4th round. We'll see if this gets him. If he has a good week, it could be a launching pad to actually getting him drafted somewhere on day 3.
I agree with you for Fagnano from UConn. I think there's a lot of reasons he went under the radar, mainly because UConn surprised, very quietly went 9-3 this season. And he was a very efficient passer. He didn't make a lot of mistakes. Like you said, 28 touchdowns, 1 interception. But from senior, I'm really looking forward to see if Taylon Green can rebound from what was a really underwhelming season. I think he has all the tools you really want. The athleticism, the ability to create as a runner. He's such a long athlete that like his arm and it's like watching like Tayshaun Prince play basketball. Like he's just all arms and legs. But I think there's so much that has to be done for him mechanically that I'm curious to see if his mechanics have constantly improved from being at Boise State to Arkansas to this point. If he can improve his mechanics, that could help his accuracy out a lot. And again, we see it all the time. Teams will draft quarterbacks with tools. So if he's able to shore up his mechanics a little bit and be a little more accurate in this scenario, we could see him come off the board potentially late day 2, early day 3.
Yeah, I thought he was gonna be so good this year. The first game of the season was electric. Obviously, it was against Alabama A&M. He has, the tools are awesome for him. The size, the ability to run. He just made so many mistakes with the football. The accuracy suffered. We'll see, but like I said, a potential bounce back for him. Get to running backs. Again, I said running back, the position I probably care about the least at this game, but there's some talent here because basically everyone after Jeremiah Love is jockeying for RB2. There's no one who's even like, I can go as far as to say this is for sure a day 2 guy at this point. In my opinion, I think you probably disagree with me on that with who you like as RB2 that we talked about, but it's just that's the talent we're dealing with in this running back class is that it's very debatable how good the second guy is. I'd probably put Jadarian Price there, the other Notre Dame running back, but you might disagree with me. He's not going to be here though. Shrine Bowl, we have Robert Henry Jr., UTSA back, who I love. I think if you're looking for like an under the radar guy, it's him. He runs super hard for an undersized back. Damon Claiborne for Wake Forest, maybe the most dynamic athlete after Jeremiah Love in this running back class. And then Eli Heidenreich from Navy, one of their fullbacks / wide receivers. He did a lot for Navy. So I'm very interested to see what he does down Shrine Bowl and then the Senior Bowl. Nick Singleton from Penn State, maybe one of the most disappointing prospects this year. Penn State had a lot of those, unfortunately. That's how you finished the way they did. Gatron Allen from Penn State, who was not as disappointing, probably the better prospect at this point in the NFL eyes. And then Jonah Coleman from Washington.
I love Jonah Coleman.
Yes.
That is like he is an ethical runner of the football. I think he can be the thunder to somebody's lightning in a lot of ways. Like his ability to just grind out yards, break tackles. He could be someone who, if you need some more power to your game, and I think it would really make sense. Like if the Chiefs decided not to draft Jeremiah Love early in round 1, I think Jonah Coleman would really fit in that scheme, especially with how much they want to try and get him downhill, get their running backs downhill. I do think like he's not super fast, but he is a 10-yard, like he's going to get out in those 10 yards, and it's really hard to tackle him when he gets him moving. But I'm also sort of excited to see Eli Heidenreich from Navy because, like you said, he did so much for that Navy football team. I loved how they ran their offense. Drew Cronick is one of the better offensive minds in college football, but Heidenreich does a lot as a runner, as a receiver. He's going downfield, making legit receiver catches. He's a good runner. He just doesn't have that prototypical like size and athleticism, but you could see like him carving out a role in the NFL, maybe with as many teams want a fullback on the roster now. I'm not saying you like truly like bulk him up, but I mean, Kyle Juszczyk is like what, 220, 225, and has been one of the best fullbacks in the NFL for almost a decade now. So maybe Heidenreich can really fill out a role similar to Juszczyk in San Francisco, but his ability to wear multiple hats is going to be really interesting. And then, like you said, Nick Singleton, I was disappointed because I used to work for Sports Illustrated Northwestern, and I was doing a lot of high school recruiting profiles. And one of the guys I got was Nick Singleton, and you can just see the athleticism. Like it stands out immediately. He is one of the most dynamic athletes at the running back spot in this draft class. But where Gatron Allen has him beat, despite not being a better athlete than Singleton, is the vision. and the ability to make guys miss with your eyes instead of just pure running off of instinct. You see a lot of guys in the NFL early in their careers, they don't trust their blocks and they'll bounce a lot of runs because they trust their athleticism more. So it's going to be really, really impactful for Singleton to trust his eyes and trust his blocking in the Senior Bowl to really sort of show that he can win with vision.
Yeah, so he's 220. I think he'll probably run in the 4.3s, which again, if 220 pounds run the 4.3s, like already that should perk your ears up and be like, okay, what's wrong with, why isn't he? And or his freshman year, he ran for over 1,000 yards, 6.8 yards per attempt. I thought we had the next Saquon on our hands, but you hit the nail on the head. The guy's vision, run pacing, ability to get in and out of cuts is just bad. And at this point, 4 years in, that to me, running style is the reason why most running backs are busts at the next level. It is not talent. It's not how athletic they are. It is that they don't run in the manner that it takes to run at the NFL level. And that's why I'm just like, Singleton, heck of an athlete, awesome. Wouldn't touch him until late day 3. Just like that guy, remember like Niles Davis? Yeah. That's like the same guy. They're so similar. Niles Davis was 227. He ran a 4.37 coming out of Arkansas, and he could not find a hole to save his life. And this past year, 4.4 yards per attempt for Nick Singleton on 124 carries. That ain't it. All right, wide receiver room. Here's where it starts to get real. The wide receiver 101s, obviously, what a lot of people come for. And the Senior Bowl specifically has some separators this year. You got Kevin Coleman from Missouri. Kevin Coleman Jr. is a slot sort of bouncy wide receiver who's going to look good in those. He's a four schooler. I think I said Monday night, I'm going to start using the term 3 schooler for prospects as like almost like a derogatory. He's a 3 schooler. If you guys been to 3 stops before he becomes an NFL draft prospect, that's usually not a good thing. Well, he's been to 4 schools in 4 years. That's definitely not a good thing for NFL evaluators. They're definitely not going to look great on that. But 4 schooler Kevin Coleman Jr., KC Concepcion, 2 schooler, NC State, Texas A&M, potential first rounder, and then Brennan Thompson from Mississippi State. Maybe a name that hasn't got a ton of buzz, but he is a guy that you're going to see down the Senior Bowl. He's going to get open. And on the flip side, Shrine Bowl, Eric Rivers, Georgia Tech, one of the best athletes in this draft class, but he's just small. I mean, he's just a small target on the outside. Skylar Bell from Connecticut. He had a heck of a year this past year. I think he was a finalist for the Litnikoff. A little undersized, but he gets open. And then Jeff Caldwell from Cincinnati. I think I touched on him when we touched about the receiver class. He's the best athlete in this draft class. I think I can feel confident saying that he's the best athlete in this draft class, but transferred from Lindenwood to Cincinnati this past year and just was not super productive. So we'll see what he can do in that setting.
KC Concepcion is going to go viral during Senior Bowl because he might be the best separator when it comes to running routes in this draft class. The quickness, and it's not just like the speed. He's going to obviously run fast, but his abilities to start and stop is going to be highlighted in these one-on-ones. But his issues come when the ball is actually thrown to him. His drop rate has been catastrophic, and he cleaned that up a little bit at Texas A&M, but there were still a lot of times where you're frustrated watching the tape because it's like in basketball, you say $1 million move, $0 shot, it's $1 million route, and then you get open and then you drop the ball. There are a lot of similarities to me to Zay Flowers when it comes to just the urgency that he runs routes, the explosiveness. But then there's some real bad focus drops that you're just hoping get ironed out. If he can iron out those drops, then like, man, we're looking at a guy who can contribute day one, both as a receiver and a returner. But I do think outside of the guys that you named, I'm really sort of excited to see Deshaun Stribling at the Shrine Bowl from Ole Miss. He sort of has gone very much under the radar, but it felt like every time Ole Miss needed a play through the air, they were going to Deshaun Stribling. He's not exactly a burner, but I do think he's going to make a lot of contested catches. He's a reliable guy in the in-between game. And then, like you said, Jeff Caldwell, transfer from Lindenwood to Cincinnati. I've already said, like, big, tall, fast, you're probably going to find a team. You will probably find your way onto my team. And Jeff Caldwell is the biggest, tallest, and fastest of this receiver class. if he can really show up in one-on-ones and make a lot and do a lot of good work, he's going to get drafted and he's going to do some really fun stuff for an NFL team that just needs some explosiveness from their receiver core.
Yeah, I mean, think about Deontay Thornton from last year, who went like 120 something for the Raiders and then starts right away. It's like a vertical threat. I think he's one, a touch bigger, like a touch stronger, and two, just touch more explosive. Maybe not straight line as fast, but like a touch more explosive. So that's kind of the type we're dealing with here. Back to Concepcion for just a second to put some numbers to it. 9.3% career drop rate. If you're around 10%, that's red flag territory. Was over 10% each of the last 2 years. But he is a guy that, you know, we kind of decry the portal at times. He is a guy that the portal did him favors because NC State's offense had him in slot hell. They had him running like 5-yard whip routes. And it's just like, you could see on that guy had some goods, but this year he actually got to run an NFL-ish route tree, right? He actually got to do some things that you would want to see him do if he's going to be, you know, first round pick of wide receiver. And my Lord, was impressive on those. So yes, Casey Concepcion, very much looking forward to him. I got to shout out one guy though, because one of my sleepers here, Vinny Anthony from Wisconsin. I'm very much looking forward to seeing. Anytime you mention Wisconsin wide receiver, you know he's not going to put up big numbers, but I think he can actually get open. So excited to see what he does at the Senior Bowl.
I'm also intrigued to see the receiver during the receiver class for a Senior Bowl is Jacoby Lane from USC.
Is he gonna play? You think?
I hope he does because I think he needs it. We sort of, it feels like we're gonna start going away from like the Keon Coleman receiver because of how scrutinized the Keon Coleman pick has been for the Bills, and that's sort of what you worry about with Jacoby Lane, just the inability to sink his hips and create separation. But he's young. He's tall, he's athletic, and he can go up and get the ball. We've seen the catch. It was early this season against Georgia Southern, the one-handed touchdown catch he made. He is super athletic when it comes to going up and getting the ball. And I think there's a little bit of wiggle potential. There's potential for him to be a good route runner, but there are just times where it just doesn't look like he's sinking at all in his routes. So I'm hoping a good week at the Senior Bowl where he's able to create separation will really help his stock so he doesn't just become a bully ball technician or a bully ball guy in the NFL level.
I thought he could be so good this year, but he did not take a big next step in my opinion. So we'll see. Tight end position. Kind of meh here, I'll say. I think the wide receiver position was impressive. You have a lot of top 100 guys. TBD on if you get any top 100 guys out of this group. From the Shrine Bowl, Jack Endries from Texas via Cal, Eli Raridan from Notre Dame, Jaron Kanak, maybe the most interesting one from Oklahoma because he just switched to tight end this year, was a linebacker prior to that. And I think he did some really nice things after the catch. I wish he had more eligibility, truthfully, because he was so impressive in the limited role we got from him. Then at the Senior Bowl, Justin Jolie, the NC State tight end, who's one of the best athletes in this tight end class, probably. Tanner Koziel, the Houston tight end via Ball State, one of the best, most productive tight ends in this class. And then Dan Villari, Syracuse, former quarterback, I believe. Interesting after the catch, not super productive though.
I'm really excited to see Jaron Kanak in a postseason circuit because, like you said, this is his first year playing tight end. I actually thought he did some really nice stuff when it comes to just pure athleticism and movement skills.
And really good hands too, I thought.
He did some really nice stuff. Yeah, he showed some really nice hands. And again, you don't say that about linebackers. Like linebackers are the guys on the team that you put at linebacker because they can't catch anywhere else. So him moving from linebacker to tight end was a really nice addition to his athletic profile. The teammates love him. He seems like such a good locker room presence, but I do think he has a lot to gain from a good week at Shrine at the tight end position. And like I said, Justin Jolie from NC State, I'm very intrigued in what he becomes at the NFL level. It feels like we got a lot of move tight ends that are sort of just going to win as receivers, not really as blockers, but the downfield stuff for him is going to be very intriguing.
Yeah, so he was a guy who was like a 215 coming in. I believe he started at UConn. And 250 pounds, that is. 215, I don't know what else I'd be referring to, but 215 pounds coming in. And with those guys, you're always like, can they get up to 250? Well, he got to 250. He looks big now, but unfortunately, he's still not. He didn't look as fast this year. He got to the size, but that's always the worry is like, can they get there while still being dynamic? So I want to see, one, what he weighs in at, two, if he is still dynamic in the one-on-ones at that size. So a lot riding on it for him because he could be a top 100 guy, truthfully, in this tight end class with not a lot of guys, with everyone looking for that number 2 now. That's, the move guy, everyone looking to get to 12, 13. He's a guy that can do that. Offensive tackle position. Start with Shrine. Emil Wagner from Notre Dame. I think he has the athletic tools to be an NFL offensive tackle. He might be the weakest offensive tackle in this entire draft class. I mean, he is skinny, dude. Week 1, Miami was just, if you remember that game, it was Emil Wagner who was getting his ass handed to him by Ruben Bain, just because the power difference was unbelievable. Keegan Trost from Missouri, who had a heck of a year. I mean, I think he's like a 6th or 7th year guy. Tape's good, but he's one of these like bad body, low traits, but he played really well this past season. And then on the flip side of that, I think like these two are opposite sort of prospects. Fa'alili Fa'amoa from Wake Forest is, again, the complete opposite. He has high-end traits. This guy moves the way you want it to move. He has great feet. He has great size. He's strong as hell. His tape is bad. His hands are terrible. I have a theory, grew up in American Samoa. I have a theory that he just played soccer growing up because he has no clue what he's doing with his hands. He probably didn't pick up a ball until he was in college. That guy just does not have that aspect of the game, but hey, maybe we could teach it to him. So those are your top 3 at the Shrine. Senior Bowl, the guy I'm maybe looking forward to more than any other here, Maxi Iheanacho, the offensive tackle from Arizona State. Talked about him, didn't play until college, didn't play football at all until college, started off at JUCO, transferred to Arizona State, got better every year, high-end athlete. Very excited to see him. Jude Bowery from Boston College, and then Austin Barber from Florida, who I kind of like Austin Barber as like the day 2, like this year's Ozzie Trapilo, where it's just, you're not getting Joe Thomas, right? You're not getting the next coming of an elite starter, but throw that guy in and it might not look terrible. That's it's obviously not something, not a ring endorsement, but I think Austin Barber from Florida could end up a day 2 pick.
I'm so intrigued by Fa'alili Fa'amoa from Wake Forest at the Shrine Bowl. Like you said, like he is one of the most athletic tackles in this draft class. He feels sort of like the Jeff Stoutland day 3 pick for the Eagles, where it's like, all right, just get him in the room with a good offensive line coach and just see what happens. Let's just try and throw something at the wall and see if it sticks. You could say the same thing when the Lions drafted Giovanni Manu. It was sort of the same, like similar thing, but of course, different circumstances. But the athleticism is just immediately going to stand out when you watch him play. And then at Senior Bowl, we talked about Iheanacho. Austin Barber is one that I'm really intrigued by, mainly because he sort of struggles with power and struggles to anchor to me sometimes. But like you said, you know what you're going to get. You know what you're going to get in at least a spot starter at tackle. You can have him on the roster, but I'm also really intrigued by Isaiah World in like a very he just needs to have a good week of reps because his season this year is really underwhelming. It's hard to be a tackle at the size Isaiah World is height wise and be a little like it's hard to move when you have all that to move. So I'm very intrigued how he does against these pass rushers in one-on-one situations.
Yeah, he's one of those guys. So he's at Nevada last year, transfers to Oregon, that kind of it shines a better light on him. Like these are why evaluators like the portal, is because at Nevada he probably it was intriguing, but you didn't know what it would look like when you faced real competition. And this year when he did, it was not as intriguing. It was not as good. So here's his chance to redeem himself. All right, here's my position that I'm the most excited to watch because I think it's the most talented position at both of these games. Interior offensive line. I think we did the class breakdowns. I think this is one of the stronger classes here. At the Shrine, Chris Adams from Memphis, Brian Parker from Duke, Armaj Reed Adams from Texas A&M. Excited to see all those guys. I think Chris Adams actually from Memphis is the one who's highest on my board right now, cracked the top 100. But the Senior Bowl is where there's some primo action on the interior offensive line. We have Keelan Rutledge from Georgia Tech, Emmanuel Pregnon from Oregon, who's probably of all the interior offensive line here going to be the highest drafted, I would guess. Probably a top 50 pick. Trey Zone from Texas A&M. But then there's a bunch of other guys I'm looking forward to seeing. Alex Harkey from Oregon, who was, I believe, out of position at right tackle for Oregon. I think he's an interior offensive lineman, but was impressive there. Cage Casey from Boise State. Carver Willis from Washington. These are a lot of tackle to guard converts. I hope we see them at guard. Fernando Carmona from Arkansas. J.C. Davis from Illinois. All these guys. Parker Brailsford from Alabama. All these guys are potential like back end of the top 100. Do they sneak into day two sort of prospects in this class? They might, with the need for offensive line for so many teams. So I think Jennings Dunker too from Iowa. Gosh, there's so many guys. So this is the position where I'm like, I want to see how these guys fare.
Keelan Rutledge is going to start a fight one day in prep because
is he this year's Trevor Penning?
He is this year's Trevor Penning when it comes to he's going to piss so many defensive linemen off because he plays with that junkyard dog mentality, his ability to finish blocks. They had him a lot when Georgia Tech majored in GT counter and pulling guards. And he is the most pulling guard look of pulling guards in this draft class. Like, you want him coming around the blind side and just whacking somebody. I'm curious how he moves in pass protection in space, especially against a lot of these bigger defensive tackles. But I'm also glad that you mentioned Parker Brailsford from Alabama. Really, really undersized. Like, we're talking like almost like positional outlier when it comes to size, but you could argue that he was one of, if not the most impressive offensive lineman for Alabama this year. And they rely on him a lot. So, I mean, I'm intrigued to see him. I'm intrigued to see Jennings Dunker from Iowa. He has gotten a lot of attention since the beginning of the season. Jake Slaughter from Florida is also another guy that everybody, like, the tape really loves. But again, sort of, it's a lot of positional outliers in this draft class. A lot of tackles to guards, guards to center, center to, I don't know where you're going to play. But center to fullback, but yeah. I'm very intrigued in those guys at the Senior Bowl because that could be the best position group that they have this year.
Yeah, there's some undersized centers in this draft class. Interested to see how you mentioned Slaughter, Brailsford, Logan Jones too from Iowa. Like, interested to see how those guys are valued by the NFL because I don't want to say they're going away from that, but like they're very scheme specific at this point with how much people want to generate movement up front. All right, we take a break. That was the offense side of the ball. We're going to flip to defense right after this.
When you need your sports news all the time,
we've got breaking news to bring to you.
CBS Sports HQ gives you a snapshot of all the sports that matter to you. When you need your sports in a snap, find it on CBS Sports HQ. Streaming free anywhere you are.
All right, defensive tackle position, Shrine Bowl. Some intriguing names. I'm not sure some top prospects, but these guys I'm very much looking forward to seeing. Landon Robinson's one, another Navy prospect, another like 6-foot DT, the ones we just talked about. Is he going to dominate there? Caleb Proctor from Southeast Louisiana. If you haven't heard about this guy, actually, this is one who I'm like, he's a real prospect. This guy's going to put on a show. He might be the best athlete in this DT class. And now he's undersized, 6'3", 280, but like, watch him at Shrine Bowl. You'll see what I'm talking about. And then Dante Corleone from Cincinnati, a guy who I never really quite developed over the course of his career, but has been like a 3-time Bruce Feldman's Freaks List guy. Very much could make himself some money down there. I'd also throw in Darrell Jackson from Florida State. Another guy who like really never took a next step, but he's enormous. I mean, he's like 6'5", gonna have 35-inch arms, just like one of these behemoths at DT. But Senior Bowl is where kind of the top DTs are this year. Lee Hunter from Texas Tech via UCF, one of the best playmaking DTs in this draft. Nick Barrett, I thought, came on really strong this year from South Carolina. Really his first year as a starter, but one of the best run-defending DTs in this draft class. And then the guy who probably has a chance to make himself more money than anyone in this entire event, Caleb Banks from Florida. Discussed him a little, 76 snaps this year. He actually played fewer snaps in 5 years at Florida. This stat is nuts. Fewer snaps in 5 years at Florida, despite you're not Florida, between Florida and Louisville. 5 years in college, despite being like a starter for a good number of those. Fewer snaps in 5 years than DeForest Buckner played his senior year individually and his junior year individually. Now, that's also a DeForest Buckner is an alien stat. He played over 940 snaps each of his last 2 seasons at Oregon. I still remember grading a game from him where he played 100 snaps in a college football game. Don't know why they were subjecting him to that, but my Lord, DeForest Buckner, tip cap to him. But Caleb Banks is just like the wild card. He has some of the most dominant reps you'll ever see on tape, but he hasn't played a lot of football.
There is a very, very good argument that Caleb Banks is the best defensive tackle in this draft class.
Yeah, I mean,
if you watch like the 2024 tape and then the games he did play this season against Tennessee, against LSU, that is a dominant defensive tackle. And it's not just the arm length that we talked about. It's the arm length paired with the quickness, the hand usage. He looks the part when you watch him play. The issue is, like you said, 5th-year senior, a lot of injuries. And it's really unfortunate that he's had all the injuries because you could see him like start to really grow into his body and grow into the athleticism last year. Then the foot injury happens this year and he comes back against Tennessee, LSU, looks great. And then Florida's just already in the tank. So it's going to be really intriguing to see him up close at the Senior Bowl because that is a big dude. Mm-hmm. So I'm very excited to see him. I'm really curious about Grayson Halton, the Oklahoma defensive tackle. Coaches rave about him. Just love the guy, constantly improved over his time at Oklahoma. Very undersized.
Another one of those in the mold we've been talking about.
He is not going to set any records, tipping scales out at the defensive tackle spot, but his quickness, his motor is really going to stand out. Another guy like that is Zane Durant from Penn State. Very undersized, but he's more of just like he's a rocked up undersized. Like he is massive despite being on the smaller side. And then from the Shrine Bowl, like you said, Darrell Jackson is a guy I'm really intrigued by. Dante Corleone from Cincinnati is another guy that I'm hoping he has a good week because I'm very fascinated by him as like just a one tech. But he had the health issue, I think it was last season, that sort of like took away a lot of snaps for him. So I'm hoping he rebounds with a good week because for a lot of teams that need run stoppers because of where the NFL is going, Corleone could be a really nice pick on day 2.
Yeah, he had blood clots and then basically played out of shape once he did come back from it because he never got into shape because he couldn't work out for all. One side note, one of the things I do also like about watching the Senior Bowl, especially being there, is, and it's going to sound sus, but body happiness, like checking it, like how these guys are built, how are they put together? Because when you're talking about Caleb Banks, one of my first thoughts was just like, he's 330, but he's dense. Some guys are 330 and that belt line's doing a lot of work holding up their gut, right? With Caleb Banks, that ain't the case. And you see it on his tape that when he hits guys, it's 330 pounds of muscle mass coming at him. So that's one of the things that you just don't quite get as good a feel for on tape as you can seeing these guys in person. Get to the edge where the Shrine Bowl has some prospects I really like. We'll see where they end up going, but Malachi Lawrence from UCF, I think, is one of the most underrated players in this entire draft class. He's going to have, and he did measure in with a 7-foot wingspan last spring. 40 pressures this season. And I think down the stretch, the violence that he plays with, I had him in my latest top 50. I think he could be a real sort of riser throughout this process. So he's one to watch. Ethan Burke from Texas, he's not as long, but he was productive there this past season for him. And then Anthony Lucas from USC, former 5-star, who like showed flashes, and he's 275. He can be a powerful guy, but just the consistency was never there with him. At the Senior Bowl, Romello Heights, probably the one I'm watching closest because he weighed in 227 last spring. It never really showed on tape. I mean, even against the run, this guy plays the way you want an edge to play. If you told me he's hit the weight room enough and it's like 250 and solid at that, I think he's a first round. I mean, that's how good his tape was this past season, but again, what's he going to weigh in at? How is he going to look? Is he going to be able to generate power, against NFL offensive tackles? We'll see. Zion Young from Missouri, a speed to power, strength, sort of bull rusher type guy. And then TJ Park from Clemson, who first round mock preseason had him top 10. The guy was a freshman starter at Clemson, very productive early on in his career, not as productive this past season, kind of common theme with Clemson, but he needs to bounce back with a big week to get himself back in that conversation. The
Romello height discussion is going to be so interesting because, like you said, like I like the pass rush.
Am I right?
Yeah. it's difficult because I like the pass rush stuff that he brings. The speed, I think the fluidity at which he moves is really nice, but it's really hard to buy into a 225-pound edge rusher. Yeah. It's really hard to buy into that on the first 2 days of the NFL draft, because where do you play him? Because he's not an off-ball guy. You can't really play. You have to play him in a specific, like, he's got to be strictly like a 3-4, like at edge, outside linebacker. You can't really play him with his hand in the dirt because he's going to get eaten alive at the point of attack. So I think for him, it's the run defense. The inside run reps are going to be huge for him. I'm curious if any of the defensive coaches sort of move him off ball, on ball a little bit at the Senior Bowl. That'd be really fascinating. Another guy that I'm really intrigued by is Vincent Anthony from Duke. Mm-hmm. Just long. He's pretty athletic. I do like some of the stuff that he brings as a pass rusher. Some of the traits are really nice. I want to see him more in a scenario like the Senior Bowl.
And I think both the Duke guys are very athletic, but not very productive.
Yeah, like
the Williams to be in the other one.
It's traits, it's tools. Yeah. I'm excited to see how productive he can be with those tools at the Senior Bowl. And like I said, Malachi Lawrence is he's a basketball player on tape. Like it's crazy seeing how much space he can close because he has the longest arms. Like he potentially has the longest arms of any edge in this draft class.
They're over 35 inches. I think they measured in last spring.
So. Like that's going to play. Like if you are tall, long, and can move at that size and length, you're going to get drafted early. I'm very curious to see how he does in this scenario.
Yeah, edge class, a lot of movement will be had here, especially since, outside of TJ Parker, we're talking about day 2 edges here. So a lot of jockeying for position in that realm. Let's get a linebacker where Shrine's got some players this year. Jake Golday from Cincinnati. I have him as a top 50 guy on my board. I think he's incredibly versatile. He's 6'4", 240. Plays some overhang for them. Played edge early on his career at Central Arkansas. I'm a fan of his. See what he weighs in at. See how his GPS numbers are. But he can move. Red Murdoch from Buffalo, the career leader in forced fumbles. For my money, the biggest hitter in this draft class. The career leader in terms of like all of college football history in forced fumbles. And then Lander Barton from Utah, a guy who played both ways this past year, brother of Cody Barton. So he's got it in his blood. And while he's not he's not the hitter that Murdoch is, he's a lot more fluid, a lot more athletic than Murdoch is. Senior Bowl, we have Kyle Lewis, who of all these guys, I think I'm looking forward to seeing the most because undersized. Again, he played overhang there at Pittsburgh. I think Mel Kiper, I looked at his rankings, and he has him listed as a safety. I think he's more of a linebacker. He's 220. But so it definitely bridges that kind of gap, but he can really roll. He's an easy mover at linebacker. Caleb Elarms-Orr from TCU, one of the better blitzing linebackers in this draft class, is very productive in that regard. And then Jacob Rodriguez from Texas Tech, the all-world, just truly racked up tackles, racked up forced fumbles, did it all for Texas Tech's defense, but did have the benefit of playing behind what was maybe the best defensive line in college football.
I'm so excited to watch Red Murdoch, man. Like this feels like a guy. That's one of my guys at the linebacker spot. If you want somebody that's going to get downhill and light a running back up, that is Red Murdoch. And I mean, first of all, incredible linebacker name. Red Murdoch, like, is going to be a middle linebacker with a cowboy collar that you like remember in 15 years played for your team. It's like, oh, that's a great pull. Red Murdoch. Remember that guy? The dude puts like he's gonna have like helmet paint from other teams on his helmet by the end of the week. He's such a strong player that can get off of blocks. He's aggressive filling downhill, forces fumbles. Like if you need a designated run stopper, I feel like Red Murdoch can be sort of in that role, very similar to a guy like Landon Roberts and what Landon Roberts has sort of done.
That's
in
exactly
the
that
NFL.
player.
I'm very intrigued by Eric Gentry from USC because again, like it's really hard to find like athletes on the football field that look like Eric Gentry because of how tall he is and also just how like slim he is. Like he's not a big like linebacker. So it's going to be curious. I'm going to be curious to see where he like fits in the NFL because it's really hard to play at that slim as a linebacker, especially when you allow guys into your chest. So I'm very intrigued to see where he ends up. And then at Senior Bowl, love Jacob Rodriguez for what he is. Like he is always going to be around the ball. He knows ball. Like we say like this guy knows ball. He knows ball. He knows where the ball is going to be. I'm also intrigued by Jack Kelly. I don't know. He just makes plays from BYU. He just everywhere. Everywhere he goes, he's going to make plays. Again, the athleticism matching up with running backs might be a little on and off, but if you need somebody who's a blitzer, get downhill, I do like Jack Kelly a lot.
Yeah, and linebacker is a position that the NFL has not been great at scouting. Let's be real. I think they've really been overly emphasizing athletic traits. And obviously you'd love to have the guy who runs a 4.4 and is a high-end athlete and everything. But like a lot of times it is the guy who just sees things faster. You know, it's all because it's such 90% of your plays are within 10 yards. You know, it's not the 40 comes into play a handful of times, you know, wide runs, tracking down the run of the rail and cover 2. Those scenarios, yes, you would love to have it. But a lot of times your TJ Edwardses of the world can be very productive without like TJ Edwards ran a 4.9 coming out. You know, like there's still room for guys like that in certain schemes around the NFL. Let's get to cornerback, where Shrine Bowl, you have Brent Austin from Cal, who there's 2 Cal corners in this one, him, Hezekiah Masses. Usually they both go to one game. Now they both were like, I think they both transferred in this year. So maybe there's not like some solidarity there that you would usually get, but he's at the Shrine. Masses is at the Senior Bowl. And I actually have Austin as the higher ranked corner on my board right now. Devontae Smith from Notre Dame, one of the better slots in this draft class. He's a guy that needs this because he didn't play much this past year, was out for the majority of the season. And then Marcus Allen, why am I blanking on where he's from? North Carolina. He was the Belichick corner in this year's class. And then the Senior Bowl, there are some players at the Senior Bowl here that I'm very much looking forward to. These guys could all be top 50 picks, I think, when it's all said and done. You have Chris Johnson from San Diego State, who's tape this year, just like in terms of pure performance, about as good as any corner in the draft class, but he is undersized. And so he needs a big week here at Senior Bowl. Julian Neal is not undersized from Arkansas. I believe he's a transfer from, I want to say Fresno State, but he's 6'2", over 200 pounds, physical, great tackler. It's his more, he needs a big week in terms of man-to-man coverage. Can he do that at a high level? And then I don't know if he plays, but Keontae Scott is listed on the roster, the Miami slot cornerback, the best slot corner in this draft class. Doesn't need anything at the Senior Bowl with how well he played down the stretch. I think he's a top 50 pick at corner, at least a second-round corner in this class.
Another guy I want to add to that list is Amari Harvey from Georgia Tech.
High-end athlete.
He's high-end athlete, and he does not care who you line up out in front of him. He's going to try and make plays for the ball. He's going to go out and hit. He's going to go out and tackle. That's sort of the reason why I like Chris Johnson from San Diego State is when I watched him, I was like, oh, I'm going to put this guy in cover 2, and he's going to light up any guy that comes into the flat because his ability to close downhill and play the ball coming downhill is really fascinating to me. I think he's got enough speed to really be a cover 2, very quarters corner. And when you think of where the NFL is going with playing a lot more cover 2, a lot more quarter half, he feels a lot like a corner that could fit in those scenarios. Another guy that I'm really intrigued by at the Senior Bowl is Takario Davis. I'm going to fall for it again. I've fallen for it before. Big
the 6'4" corner. The 6'4" corner.
I will fall for the 6'4" corner every time. I'm going to buy in. This might be the last time I'm buying in, but Takario Davis, like he has the length, he has the size to be an impact player at corner. It's just the stiffness and then the injuries that really sort of worry me. I wonder if he gets looks at safety in this year at the Senior Bowl just to try and provide some versatility. But one guy I think we might get to his teammate at safety, but Traden Stukes from Arizona is, to me, he is a round one caliber player because he has safety. He has safety, nickel versatility, the ability to make plays on the ball. Every time I watched Arizona, Traden Stukes was like, man, that guy is going to play. And wherever you put him, he can be a good blitzer, but his ability to have the versatility to play nickel, play deep safety, he can play the deep half. I'm really excited to see if they line him up at in the slot or at safety at the Senior Bowl, because wherever he goes, he's gonna make plays.
I was gonna say, so Keontae Scott's my number 1 slot in this draft class. I believe on my board Stukes is number 2. So those are definitely 2 names to watch. It's funny they said Amari Harvey because I fought for Amari Harvey for the Shrine Bowl. I was like, dude, this guy's getting drafted. I'm like, invite him. And they like, he's getting drafted. I guarantee you, Amari Harvey's getting drafted. You watch his tape and you're like, yeah, there are too many good things on his tape. I know he gets burnt to a crisp. I know he's a little jumpy, but this guy has the tools to get drafted. So I fought for him to be at the Shrine. So excited to see him. All right, safety. Last position group here. Shrine Bowl. We have Cole Wisniewski, the Texas Tech safety via North Dakota State, who's big, 6'3", I want to say, over 200 pounds. He could be even a linebacker at the next level. I'm interested to see if they give him reps there because he's that sort of size. Robert Spears Jennings from Oklahoma, another guy I fought for to get the Shrine Bowl. He's a great run defender. He can come up, play around the line of scrimmage. And then Bishop Fitzgerald from USC, the other USC safety at the Senior Bowl. Genesis Smith, who from Arizona, who I think is my safety 3 in this draft class. Emmanuel McNeil-Warren from Toledo, who's my safety 2 in this draft class. And then Kamar Ramsey, who I'm actually a touch lower on than you. I know you love Kamar Ramsey, but I see a more back end of the top 100 sort of guy. You've talked about him as a round 2 safety.
I like Kamar Ramsey, man. I just think he plays with urgency at the safety spot. And I think I like safeties that play with a lot of urgency, because especially when you're playing a lot of quarters, you're playing a lot of cover 2, you need your safeties to come down and be an impact player in the run fit right now. And Kamar Ramsey's going to come down and make a play right now from quarters. I think he can be a nickel defender if you want him to, but I like him more on the back end. Genesis Smith is a guy that I'm really fascinated by just for being a single high safety. If you play a lot of cover 3, his range and ability to like play from depth and just be your center fielder. We talked about that PJ Locke interception in the Broncos Bills game. That's what Genesis Smith does. The range and the ability to make plays on the ball is going to be really fascinating to watch, especially in this scenario where they don't play a lot of man coverage at these bowl games. They play a lot of cover 2, play a lot of cover 3. They're keeping it vanilla. So I'm curious to see if he can make more plays on the ball. And then, like you said, Emmanuel McNeil-Warren is going to light up this postseason circuit. The dude is a freak. Like, the ability to be involved in as many plays as he does, both from pass breakups, forced fumbles, interceptions. He truly can do it all. I wouldn't be surprised if he is like in the NFL, if he's a day 1 impact player, because you don't really find a lot of guys that move the way he does. And at Shrine Bowl, another guy that I'm really intrigued by, you can guess the trend here. Arizona had a lot of really good safeties. Dalton Johnson is going to get drafted. I don't know if he's going to be a top 100 guy. I don't think so, but he was sort of the Arizona played a lot of 3 safeties. They played a lot of those 3 high looks, and they had Genesis Smith as sort of their middle safety, but Dalton Johnson fills the run with some violence. He plays with some urgency against the run. He will go light somebody up. So I think he can really fit a role in terms of like core special teamer and just playing the run in an NFL defense.
I want to go back to Genesis Smith and McNeil-Warren for just a second. Smith, I think one of the traits I hold dearly for safety specifically is fluidity. Because so often what you're doing at safety is, I mean, like you're having to change directions almost by nature of the position. And so I don't care as much about straight line speed. We talked about this with the PJ Locke interception. He ran a 4.57. How did he do it? Because he flipped his hips efficiently and like ran there efficiently. You watch Genesis Smith, and he is such an efficient athlete. When he wants to go somewhere, when he wants to change directions, it is effortless for him. That's a trait I love for safeties. And then with McNeil-Warren, to get to his playmaking ability. Fred Murdoch, FBS record holder for forced fumbles, 17. McNeil Warren has 11. This is a safety with 11 career forced fumbles. He is unbelievable in that regard. That massive hitter. He is a top 30 player on my board. I think there's a chance after this week he's a first round, which is crazy to say, but that guy's tape is great. There's your safety position. There's your defensive breakdown. Very much looking forward to it. I will be on a plane tomorrow at this time. Hopefully don't get iced out over the weekend, but we'll see. If we do, I'll just be hanging out in Dallas until then. So thanks so much for tuning in. We'll be back Sunday with a breakdown. And then next week's schedule is going to be a little different because we'll both be in Mobile, hopefully. Thursday, we're going to do a recap of both Shrine and Senior Bowl. Sunday is going to be the breakdown of the championship games. Thanks so much for tuning in. Until then, keep pushing.